48 hours of fasting is done. It wasn't all too bad. I actually contemplated that I wanted to continue to the 72 hours, but I've been making some bone broth yesterday, and it has been such a wonderful smell in the house, so I just couldn't help it. I needed something to eat today. But as I'm sitting out here and enjoying the sun, I also decided to dig around a little bit to see if I can find some new information in regards to prostate cancer. And I came across a video. It's a type of video that always makes me semi-depressed for a minute or two. Statistic survival rates. And I make this video here because I believe that I'm not the only one who is curious to know about those kind of statistics. But we also have to remember when we hear statistics like this that it is a general term. We don't know in which end of that scale we are, apart from, as it was the case here, he was talking about people with a Gleason 6 treated, untreated. He talked about a Gleason 7 treated, untreated. And then he talked about the dangerous cancers that had metastasized. But he did not have any specific data to the same extent that he had with the Gleason 7 and Gleason 6, because a lot of people, they do not get treated, obviously. This is studies that goes back 15, 20 years. I can't remember how many years actually. So again, one of the things that has to keep in mind when they talk about how likely it is you die of cancer is that those are the statistics based on people who had a very different access to treatment as we have today. So he was talking about the significance between untreated and treated on a Gleason 6 was negligible. There was not really a big difference. Gleason 7, he actually said that the difference more often occurs by the fact that they were wrongly diagnosed, that they have had a random biopsy, for instance, and were diagnosed with a Gleason 6, while in fact it was a Gleason 7 or maybe even a Gleason 8. And so they were put in the wrong group with a different result, obviously, in the end result. Anyway, Gleason 7 had like, what was that? I can't remember how many times. 4 times higher likelihood of dying of cancer than the one with the Gleason 6. And then we had the high-risk group, which probably was divided into 2, high risk without metastases and high risk with metastases. And I am at the high risk with metastases because I've got a big Gleason 9, not a small one. And it has metastasized, as a PSMA test says. So here I'm sitting, not being treated, and I'm thinking, oh man, I just hate it. I mean, what am I going to do? And then I realized it's not the truth. I am treated. I am right now in the process of treating myself. Yes, a lot of people will say, are you a doctor? Do you hold a PhD degree? And so on and so forth, as they kept saying when we had the COVID issues as well. No, I don't. But I have a very, very huge invested interest in not just having a heartbeat, but also having a life. Being alive to me is not enough. I want to have a life as well. And so I don't want to sit around and let the toxic medicine be my savior. I'm doing what I can do right now, and I'm very thrilled for most part, and very excited for most part, and I'm very optimistic for most part. And I know I can allow myself to be so, because the option might be ADT, and depending on who you are, it will work for you for 2 years, or maybe 20 years, or maybe 30 years, who knows? And so if I can just get as a minimum proof of effect of what I'm doing, then I'll just continue doing that on ADT and say I can take that for a year. So back to the statistic thing. It's very important when we look at these statistics that we remember to take a look at our own personal situation, because yes, obviously a high risk like a Gleason 9, a Gleason 10 cancer that has metastases is extremely high if we're talking non-treatment. But if we're talking treatment, it's a different story. I almost will bet that there's almost no difference between a Gleason 9 and Gleason 10 when it comes to that. And if you can add on some efforts on your own that makes a difference, then all of a sudden you're not part of the darkest side of that statistic. Um, and then also there's the thing of age. Now I can only talk about my own personal experience. And obviously, if you're sitting and you're watching these videos and you're 80 years old and you have a lot of comorbidities, what I'm looking at would not have the same value to you. But me being 53, soon to be 54, very young in prostate cancer aspect, and so I would not figure as the majority of the people in that statistic. That's one thing to keep in mind. On the second one is I'm fit and I am very disciplined. I have a mindset where I'm doing my own things that will help, which I think is not really the mindset of most people. Again, to refer to the COVID thing, everybody was just jumping at the needle because the man in the white dress, he said so, but because the man with the ID card, the PhD, said so. So it's not, yeah, well, it is negative in my mind, don't get me wrong, but it is just the way it is. It is how people, for the most part, are thinking. But if you want to snap out of a lot of the problems that we have today, we have to figure out how to make the whole puzzle add up ourselves. I mentioned this in other videos. My doctors do not interest themselves in lifestyle. They don't interest in diet. They have zero interest in that. And I am at this point fully convinced that everything bad can be reversed by doing good. The only question is, at what point do you realize it is bad? And do you at that point maybe need that handbrake to help you, to assist you in the process of healing? I don't know. I know for sure now that since I've seen the videos saying that if you're doing treatment after 1 or 2 months, it is the same long-term outcome. I've given myself to the 22nd of February, and I'll give myself that time because that will give me a solid foundation to say whether the treatment I'm giving myself actually makes a difference. Because that means I will have at that point the 22nd of January and the 22nd of February to measure the PSA, and that will give me a total of 4 consecutive readings over the course of 4.5 months, 5 months. So even if I should say the result is very satisfying and I have a great faith in it, I'll still keep the door open to do ADT by the 22nd of February. But then I will also know, while I'm doing that and combating all the side effect of it, that I have a strategy that I can keep on doing that also has an impact. But I just put a brake to something instead. But whether I'm going to put the brake on it, it really depends on how low I can get with my treatment here. Now I'm going to up the antes with a canna oil at 30%, 1 drop. I'll start tomorrow. 1 drop in the morning, 1 drop in the afternoon, and let's see how that impacts my body. And also I'll just up the antes, and I'll do that all the way through to the 22nd of February. And I don't know what the number has to be, but we are at 78 now, and we have done a 15 to 22% drop on the last 2 measurements, which in turn means if I can continue at about 20% drop now, when I'm getting really efficient on my exercise, I'm getting really systematic on my ice bath, ice plunges, and I have taken stronger canna oil in the treatment. I would say 20% drop each time would make me happy, and 20% drop on a 78 is like 16, 15, 16 going down, so we'll be around 60 on the 22nd of February. And if I can dump that another 20% by the 22nd of January, 22nd of February, if I could be down at 20%, there's 12 lower. So let's just say under 50. If I can be under 50 at the 22nd of February, it's a very open question what I'm going to do. Then I'll clearly be doing something that really works, and it will make me so happy. But that's the thing, isn't it? I don't know what I'm doing because there's no science to back it out in human trials. I know what my PSA says. And I know this is the way they measure progress when they do ADT or chemotherapy or radiation anyway. But I also know that when they measure the PSA in relation to those treatments, they have a very specific knowledge as to how the treatment is supposed to respond. And so they can read the numbers with a value of saying, okay, this works this way and this not. While what I'm doing, it's impossible to say if all I'm actually doing is reducing inflammation but not the spread, for instance. I have no idea. Am I killing off cancer or not? Various of the remedies I am taking should hinder the progress of cancer, which includes the CBD. So I'm optimistic and I'm positive. I am. Mental breakdowns? Not really any of them. Do I have bad days? No, but I do have bad hours. I do have bad minutes. But the way I handle those is I remember that all of them, 100%, is based on the wrong thought pattern. And that's a very important note here in this little video today. Because if nothing hurts, then there is nothing to give you a bad day, except if you let your thoughts venture down the dark road of what if, and always look at the bad outcomes of the what if instead of all the good outcomes. So I'm becoming pretty good at very quickly to turn a bad, overwhelming, giving up kind of, oh shit, life sucks feeling to something very positive. And I can do that in very, very quickly, very few minutes when I recognize that that's the path I'm on. I've always been good at things like that, but I've never needed it that much, and I never needed it that acute. So it's a very interesting exercise. So yeah, 48 hours of fasting done, and only got 2 weeks left, and then I'll get the answer to my PSA. Obviously, if the PSA has dropped or it has had a stagnation or something, well, it doesn't really matter. The 22nd of February, I'll do it. And the other reason why I'm not doing it, I know it's stupid, but it's because I've got a big run coming out the 20th of January, and I got another big run coming out the 27th of January, and I got a huge, very interesting hike, most likely coming up, a 5-day hike in the mountains in Thailand in the second week of February, and I just don't want all the hassle that might come along with ADT. So I will take it the 22nd of February. Like they said, whether you get the treatment 1 or 2 months after the diagnosis, in terms of long-term effect, it doesn't matter, and I have to keep my eye on that. It does not matter. Yes, people say the sooner the better, and most people want to get it out of their body right out and right away. But I need statistics for something that I'm doing right now before I want to jump the gun. Until next time, stay healthy.